Well, good morning, everyone. Here we are in a great space, Liberty Warehouse. If you want to do an event, the views are spectacular. This was pretty much destroyed during Hurricane Sandy, but they brought it back, and it's another venue for events in our city. Red Hook is one of those growing communities. Artists move in. People have lived here forever are very proud of being here. Fairways is the big supermarket, as you know. We've done events there once when they opened, once when they had to recover from Sandy. There are lots of small stores, and Mark Snyder's here from the Red Hook Winery. Where are you, Mark? If you want to buy some wine while you're here, I have bought a bottle and paid in cash, which he has framed, he said. Anyway, since Hurricane Sandy struck, we've been doing everything possible to help homeowners and business owners whose property was damaged, and particularly here in Red Hook. We wanted to talk about what's happened, but citywide, I think it's useful to step back and take a look at New York City and what we've done. Our groundbreaking rapid repairs program restored power and heat for more than 55,000 New Yorkers free of charge, enabling them to get back in their homes safely. There wasn't even paperwork. We took care of that automatically. Our restoration centers offered homeowners a wealth of resources for assistance, including help in applying for federal aid. We established an Office of Housing Recovery dedicated to making sure homeowners were getting all the help and support they need. For residential properties that were severely damaged, in November, we also issued an interest-free extension on tax bills. On the business side, immediately after the storm, we made emergency grants and low-interest loans available to help businesses rebuild and reopen. And to date, about 650 businesses have received almost $15 million in loans, and more than 400 businesses have gotten $4 million in matching grants. And we took other steps for businesses, like waiving sales taxes on materials needed for reconstruction that helped them get back to full strength. These efforts have helped more than 2,400 businesses recover from Sandy. We have also committed to reviewing property tax assessments of areas hit hardest by the storm so that tax bills accurately reflected the values of the properties after the storm. And through the Department of Finance, we launched an all-out effort to do just that. We reached out to property owners in hard-hit areas and held dozens of informational events. Finance received more than 5,400 property damage reports from the owners, and each of these properties and many more were individually inspected by our assessors. Finance also inspected every property marked with a red tag. A red tag, if you remember, meant that they had sufficient damage to keep them from being safely occupied. And they did that whether a damage report had been submitted or not. For businesses, we took into account drops in operating revenue. We also took into account the effects of the storm on overall neighborhood real estate values and reduced market values across the board in neighborhoods most heavily impacted by Sandy. In total, we revised values for more than 88,000 properties impacted by Sandy. And that includes properties that suffered damage and properties in neighborhoods that saw a drop in market value because of overall local damage. And today we're announcing that we have revised the market values of those properties downward by some $12 billion, which will reduce property taxes for 53,000 homes and businesses by some $90 million for the coming fiscal year. And that's $90 million that will stay in the communities hit hardest by Sandy, helping families rebuild and also supporting local businesses. And tomorrow we'll put revised assessments in the mail for property owners impacted by Sandy. These assessments will also be posted online today on the Department of Finance webpage on nyc.gov. And because of the formulas in state tax law, not all of the 88,000 properties will see a lower assessment. But they'll also see, or a lower tax bill, but a majority of the people and a majority of the businesses will. In a nutshell, state tax law limits year-to-year increases on many residential properties to 6%, so some tax bills do take time to catch up to actual property values. And in those cases, about 35,000 cases, tax bills will remain largely unchanged next year. But more than 50,000 homeowners and businesses will see their property taxes go down. down, and incidentally, the reduction in tax revenue from that is already in our budget. We're planning for it already. Today, we're also extending the deadline to appeal property value assessments to the Tax Commission to June 20th for all of the 88,000 property owners who've had their values reassessed. And to appeal for a correction to access property values, owners should go online to the Tax Commission's website by visiting nyc.gov. The Liberty Warehouse, where we are today, I think is a great example of the impact the Department of Finance's work is having. As a result of damage from Sandy, the market value of this property was reduced by 36%, from $4.3 million to $2.7 million. Liberty Warehouse will see their property tax bill reduced by $65,000 this year as a result of our reassessment. And they've had plenty of bills as a result of Sandy, so this is going to help ease some of the pressure on them. Now, it took a lot of work under tight deadlines to accomplish this, and I want to applaud the team at Finance, especially Commissioner Frankel, for getting it done. We've come a long way since Sandy to get neighborhoods back on their feet, and I think today is just another step. We still have a lot of work to do, and the $1.77 billion in federal Sandy relief funds we receive will do a lot to help that along. A few weeks ago, we announced our plan for using those funds to help home and business owners that have been approved by the federal government, and our plan includes $72 million in loans and grants to help businesses rebuild. And applications for those loans and grants are now open. Today, we're encouraging any impacted business owner to go online to nyc.gov to learn more about these resources and how to apply. And applications will be handled by the city's Department of Small Business Services through its NYC Business Solutions Centers. And that's an organization that certainly has demonstrated, particularly here, I think, in Red Hook, that they know how to work with small businesses. It's an agency that gets enormous credit for meeting the needs of small businesses, and they still place something like 35,000 people in jobs every year. It's an agency that was criticized a lot when we set it up, but it has come through and made a big difference in this city. We've also allocated $648 million in federal relief funding for housing programs, and that includes more than $500 million to help homeowners and residential building owners rebuild. It also includes rental assistance for families displaced by the storm, and in the weeks ahead we'll announce exactly when and how New Yorkers can register to receive that assistance as well. The funding will do a lot to build on our work and help the hardest hit communities and working to get that money to homeowners as fast as possible. So let me turn the floor over to our Finance Commissioner, David Frankel. David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hurricane Sandy was an unprecedented event in the city's history, and the storm had a real impact on the market values of many properties. Our job every year is to value properties accurately, and for this year, it was making sure that the impact of Sandy was reflected in the final assessment roll that we will issue in the next week or two. Thanks to the tireless efforts of all the staff at the in the property division at the Finance Department, I'm very proud to say we accomplished this goal. It was not an easy task. Unlike during a typical assessment cycle, there was limited data available to help us make the revised determinations. Normally, finance bases its independent assessments on scores of data points, sophisticated data analytics, and appropriate valuation methodologies. But given the magnitude of the storm and its timing in the assessment cycle, we had to make do with the limited information available. It's truly a testament to our assessors' determination and training that we were able to get the job done. Let me summarize quickly what we did. Overall, finance assessors inspected over 6,100 properties, including 5,400 from whom we received property damage reporting forms, which we created just for this purpose. They also surveyed damage to all properties in the surge zones. The Department of Buildings tagged every property that needed to be demolished or required extensive structural repairs before it could be inhabited. Finance assessors inspected every one of these properties. Assessors made market value reductions to properties they visited based on the damage they observed during these inspections, as well as what was reported to us on the property damage forms. We also recognized that there was some neighborhood-wide market value impacts above and beyond damage to individual properties. For homeowners in the areas with pervasive Sandy damage, we reduced market values by 15% across the board before we applied any physical reductions. Many income-producing properties, like the one that we're in right now, were also impacted by the storm, whether or not they had physical damage. For these properties, we factored in any physical damage and also made a 10% market value reduction. I am extraordinarily grateful to the many staff members at Finance who worked diligently on this issue. They deserve the plaudits of all New Yorkers. I also note that this $90 million change to the tax levy is obviously significant. Yet, like always, nobody in this administration ever questioned our results. This reflects one of the many reasons it's an honor and privilege to serve this mayor and his administration. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I want to thank Timothy Shears, Assistant Commissioner for Property at the Department of Finance, who really headed this project. David and I will take the credit. He did the work, but he really did a great job. Next up, Small Business Services Commissioner Rob Walsh. Rob and his team have worked closely with small business owners hit by the storm to get them back on their feet, and these revised assessments do a lot to help businesses continue to recover. And to say that he has been coronated in Red Hook is understating it. You cannot walk down the street. They have no idea who the mayor is, but they all know Rob Walsh. Rob?
I'm not sure that's true, Mr. Mayor. What the mayor's not telling you is he walked around quite a bit in Red Hook during those days. And I got a phone call one night. I was watching Monday Night Football with my son, and the phone rings and it says, "It's Mayor Mike Bloomberg," and I thought it was one of my brothers messing with me. And I'm glad I just held my tongue then. But Mayor, you've been an inspiration to all of us, quite frankly, hands-on out here in Red Hook, and we made it happen. I think you pointed out Mark Snyder right next door, what he went through, what Liberty Warehouse went through, and many of the businesses up and down Van Brunt Street and across the way. Greg O'Connell, his son, have been also, big heroes in New York for all they've done, and they deserve a big round of applause for what they did here in New York City. We have made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot of work to do. Yes, Fairway is back. Thank you very much, Aaron. We have a new ferry that has been added, and many of the small businesses are opening the doors and others are getting back on their feet. That's all great news, but there's a lot more to do. And the good news is we have additional loans and matching grants through our New York City Business Solution Centers. These loans and grants cover working capital for things such as insurance costs, inventory, payroll, movable equipment, things like coffee machines, shelving, and other products for a store or shop. Loans are 1% interest with a payback period of 5 to 7 years and a 3-month interest-only payment period. There are no fees. To apply, businesses should contact our Business Solution Centers. Here in Brooklyn, it's run by the Brooklyn Chamber. They're located in all 5 boroughs. An account manager will help a small business with the application process. And I should add, we'll also be going door to door here in Red Hook, the Rockaways, in the South Shore, up and down Midland Avenue, to get this information out and to work with our elected officials. The core application information about the new loan and grant program are available online at nyc.gov or by calling 311. Applications will be available in all of the Business Solution Centers. Again, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Rob, thank you. Next up, the council member who has perhaps taken as much time to work with the Sandy victims as anybody. Sarah Gonzalez has done a lot. Jimmy Otto, I spent an enormous amount of time on Staten Island with him, door to door, in the neighborhoods, in the days after and the weeks and months after. Jimmy, you want to start out, and then Sarah will tell us what's going on here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for those kind words. It's already been a productive trip, Mr. Mayor. I found out that I'm on the cusp of getting 1 or maybe 2 fairways to Staten Island, so I have to do a little work there. Good. And the second, maybe the more important thing, is Kim and I are still looking for a location for the wedding, and it's pretty impressive, so it's already been productive. I represent a community that was impacted in a serious way by Sandy, and many of my constituents are tired and anxious and frustrated, and this recovery is ongoing, and help is, we're right on the cusp of help. So I'm here today for two reasons. One, of course, is to say thank you to you, Mr. Mayor, and your staff for this help. Commissioner Frankel and I have been talking about property assessments and property taxes for a very long time, even well before the storm. And I have to tip my hat to him because immediately he was quite candid with me in saying that this is going to be something that we have never done before. This is going to be uncharted territory, how we accurately and fairly assess properties. And I am appreciative of all of his efforts and his staff's. And we collectively are still fighting to get to fairness. And as you said, Mr. Mayor, some of our constituents will see immediate relief. Some we will have an ongoing process. We'll work with them to appeal if they think that the numbers still don't add up. This is an ongoing recovery. And the second point, and the second reason why I'm here is just to say to you, Mr. Mayor, and your staff, that we do have a lot of work to do. And I am very appreciative of the fact that Deputy Mayor Holloway, people like Brad Gehr, have an open door and allowing Councilmember Ignizio and myself on Staten Island to have our concerns, our ideas, our suggestions, our vision incorporated into the final action plan. I have two meetings with Kaz Thursday and Friday, and this is very much ongoing, and I just appreciate the help. A lot of decisions will be made in the next 7 months that will impact my community for years to come, and I appreciate the open door. So thank you.
Jimmy, thank you. And this is Sarah Gonzalez's district, and Sarah has been as involved as you can possibly be in making sure we get the right services to her constituents. Sarah, you want to?
Thank you, Mayor Bloomberg. It's really important what's happening here today because government has stepped to the plate. I certainly remember prior to the storm, even when we were warning people in the spring, and I also remember the day of and day after. And I have to say to you that walking through Van Brunt, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to embrace people. There was one gentleman whose house was underwater 3 feet, his basement, and stood there like, well, what am I going to do now? I hugged him because I didn't know what else to do. So to find and understand, and also Commissioner and Commissioner of Finance, I have to say that you guys have really stepped to the plate. This is what government is about. And to the O'Connells, I mean, I remember coming down here where the pier was sort of ripped off and water was inside all the different businesses. So we're certainly content and pleased that Mayor Bloomberg, your administration, and all your folks, and let me tell you, Commissioner Walsh, you were here every single day, embracing, engaging, trying to make people understand that we were going to be okay. It was really courageous of Red Hook, and we have stepped to the plate, and I believe the administration has done so too. So today, to be able to announce reassessments of properties, to be able to let people know that small businesses have the ability to get loans, I think is so significant. So thank you, Mayor Bloomberg, and thanks to all of you because we stayed together on this, and we did it. The people know that we care and that government is here today. Thank you.
Sarah, thank you. We have two Greg O'Connells here. We have Greg O'Connell, who's the father of Gregory O'Connell, just so you have that right. The one we're going to hear from is the son, Gregory O'Connell. He is CFO of the O'Connell organization, which owns Liberty Warehouse. Gregory, you want to say a few words and say nice things about your father?
That'll be difficult. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the City of New York for all of your support. You'll never see a commercial landlord complain about having less property tax, but this is really going to allow us to reinvest in our business, to reinvest in the property, and to also mitigate future flood occurrences. Also, with the grant program, that's really going to help local businesses here in Red Hook and all over Brooklyn. I strongly urge businesses to take advantage of it and put back into your community, put back into your business, utilize the human capital within Red Hook and within other neighborhoods, and try to service everyone around you as much as you can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I should point out the Director of Catering is here, the Director of Catering here at Liberty Warehouse, Jeffrey Torrum. So if you would like to make a pitch for Otto's business, thank you for everything. Would you like to? You can make a pitch for 2 seconds.
Thank you.
I did what you wanted, you know, or you didn't ask me to, but you should. I mean, I'm a believer in supporting local businesses, and this just looks to be a great place for an event. So. Before we take questions, let me just summarize for our Spanish-speaking New Yorkers. Para ayudar a los propietarios de viviendas y negocios impactados por el huracán Sandy, hemos revaluado casi 90,000 propiedades y reducido sus impuestos por 90 millones de dólares en el próximo año. También estamos aceptando nuevas aplicaciones para más de 70 millones de dólares en asistencia para negocios afectados por el huracán. Para más información, visite nuestro sitio del internet nyc.gov.